Cleopatra, the last queen of ancient Egypt. Hello, my friends. Today I want to tell you the amazing story of Cleopatra, the last queen of ancient Egypt. This is not just a history lesson. It is like going back in time with drama, power, love, and big dreams. Cleopatra was one of the most famous women in history, and her life is like an exciting movie. So, sit back, relax, and enjoy this great story, perfect for your English practice. I promise you will enjoy every minute of it. Chapter 1. Cleopatra's early life. Over 2,000 years ago, in 69 BCE, a baby girl was born in Alexandria, Egypt. Her name was Cleopatra VII, and she would grow up to become a very special queen. But before she ruled, she was just a little girl with big dreams. Cleopatra was born into a royal family called the Ptolemaic dynasty. This family had ruled Egypt for many years, but they were not originally from Egypt. They came from Greece. Cleopatra's ancestor, Ptolemy I, was one of Alexander the Great's generals. After Alexander died, Ptolemy became the king of Egypt. So Cleopatra's family was both Greek and Egyptian. Cleopatra's father was King Ptolemy XII. Her mother might have been Cleopatra V, but historians are not sure who her mother was. Cleopatra grew up in a palace filled with riches. She had servants, beautiful clothes, and the best teachers. But life in a royal family was not always easy. There was always danger. Family members often fought for power, and sometimes they even killed each other to become king or queen. From a young age, Cleopatra learned that knowledge was power. Most women at that time were not given a good education, but Cleopatra studied hard. She learned many languages, including Greek, Latin, Egyptian, and Hebrew. People say she could speak at least 7 languages very well. This made her very special. Cleopatra was also curious about many things. She studied science, math, literature, and politics. She did not want to be just a queen with a crown. She wanted to be a smart and strong ruler. But she had another secret weapon: charm. Cleopatra was not only smart, she was also very confident. People said her voice was beautiful and could win anyone's heart. However, her childhood was not all happy. Her father, King Ptolemy XII, was not a strong leader. Many people in Egypt did not like him because they thought he was weak and wasted too much money. Sometimes, Cleopatra's family had to leave Egypt to stay safe. Cleopatra learned early that being a ruler meant having many enemies. When Cleopatra was around 14 years old, her life changed forever. Her mother disappeared. Some say she died, others say she was killed. Her father became very sick. Soon, Cleopatra would have to fight for the throne. She was still a teenager, but she was already getting ready to become queen. What made Cleopatra different from other rulers was her strong love for Egypt. Even though she was from a Greek family, she respected Egyptian traditions. She was the first Ptolemaic ruler to learn the Egyptian language. She also showed herself as the goddess Isis, an important figure in Egyptian religion. By the time Cleopatra was a young woman, she was ready to rule. But ruling Egypt would not be easy. She had enemies both inside and outside her family. She knew she had to be brave, smart, and strong. And so, the story of Cleopatra's rise to power begins. Chapter 2. Cleopatra becomes queen. Cleopatra was not an ordinary young woman. From the moment she was born, her destiny was to rule. But becoming queen was not easy. It was a path full of danger, betrayal, and clever plans. Let me tell you how Cleopatra became the Queen of Egypt. When Cleopatra was 18 years old, her father, King Ptolemy XII, died. In his will, he said Cleopatra would rule Egypt, but not alone. She had to share the throne with her younger brother, Ptolemy XIII. who was only 10 years old. Yes, in ancient Egypt, it was normal for brothers and sisters to rule together, even if they were very young. But Cleopatra didn't want to share her power. She believed she was stronger and smarter than her brother. She had studied languages, history, and politics, while her brother was just a child with no experience. Cleopatra knew she had to take control if she wanted to protect Egypt and rule it well. At first, Cleopatra tried to rule together with her brother, but soon their advisors started working against her. These advisors did not like the idea of a strong, smart woman leading Egypt. They wanted Ptolemy XIII to have all the power because he was easier to control. Cleopatra's life quickly became dangerous. She was forced to leave the royal palace and run away to the desert. Imagine Cleopatra, the true queen, walking in the hot, dry desert with only a few loyal friends. She had no home, no army, and no throne. But Cleopatra was not a woman who gave up easily. While she was in exile, Cleopatra started planning. She knew she couldn't win back her throne by herself. She needed help and had to act fast. Luckily, at that time, a powerful Roman general named Julius Caesar arrived in Egypt. Caesar was one of the most famous and important men in the world. Cleopatra saw a chance. Cleopatra decided to meet Caesar, but she knew she had to do something bold to get his attention. She couldn't just walk into the palace, because her enemies would stop her. So, she came up with a brave and clever idea. One night, Cleopatra had her loyal servant wrap her inside a large carpet. Yes, a carpet. The servant carried the carpet into Caesar's rooms as a gift. When the carpet was unrolled, Cleopatra appeared, looking beautiful and confident. Imagine Caesar's surprise when this young, smart woman stood before him. Cleopatra spoke to Caesar with charm and intelligence. She told him about her struggles, her love for Egypt, and her dream to be a great queen. Caesar was impressed. He saw Cleopatra was not only beautiful, but also smart and ambitious. Caesar agreed to help Cleopatra win back her throne. Together, they made a plan to defeat Ptolemy XIII and his advisors. Cleopatra's enemies could not fight against the strong team of Cleopatra and Caesar. After a hard battle, Ptolemy XIII was defeated, and Cleopatra became queen again. But Cleopatra didn't stop there. She wanted Egypt to be powerful and respected. She worked closely with Caesar to make her country stronger. She made new rules, improved trade, and built a strong friendship between Egypt and Rome. Chapter 3. Cleopatra and Julius Caesar. Cleopatra was now the queen of Egypt, but her life was not peaceful. She had taken back her throne with the help of Julius Caesar, one of the most powerful men in Rome. However, their story was not only about politics, it was also about love, ambition, and danger. After defeating her brother Ptolemy XIII with Caesar's support, Cleopatra became the strongest person in Egypt. But ruling Egypt was not enough for her. She wanted to make Egypt strong and respected all over the world. She knew that having Caesar by her side could help her reach her goals. After the battle, Cleopatra and Caesar spent a lot of time together. Cleopatra admired Caesar's strength, intelligence, and leadership. Caesar admired Cleopatra's beauty, charm, and sharp mind. Even though Caesar was much older, he was around 52 years old, and Cleopatra was only 21, they had a strong connection. Cleopatra invited Caesar to stay in Egypt, and he agreed. They explored Alexandria together, sailed on the Nile River, and talked about their dreams for the future. Cleopatra showed Caesar Egypt's rich culture and history, and Caesar was impressed. He realized that Egypt was not just a land of deserts and pyramids. It was a wealthy and powerful country. During this time, Cleopatra became pregnant, In 47 BCE, she gave birth to a son named Ptolemy Caesar, but people called him Caesarion, meaning Little Caesar. Cleopatra believed that Caesarion could one day unite Egypt and Rome, creating a great empire. She hoped her son would be a symbol of strength and unity, but their happiness did not last long. Cleopatra and Caesar's relationship caused many problems. In Rome, people did not like how close Caesar was to a foreign queen. They thought Cleopatra wanted to control Rome through Caesar. Some even called her a dangerous woman. Caesar decided to return to Rome, but he did not leave Cleopatra behind. Instead, he invited her to join him. Cleopatra, always brave, agreed. She traveled to Rome with Caesarion and a large group of servants. Imagine the scene: Cleopatra arriving in Rome in golden chariots, with exotic animals and beautiful Egyptian servants. She wanted to show the Romans Egypt's wealth and power. In Rome, Cleopatra lived in a luxurious villa given to her by Caesar. She attended grand banquets, met important Roman leaders, and even influenced Roman fashion with her Egyptian style. But not everyone liked her. Many Roman women disliked Cleopatra because she was different. She was confident, glamorous, and unafraid to stand out. While Cleopatra was in Rome, she watched Caesar's power grow. He declared himself dictator for life, meaning he controlled all of Rome. Cleopatra hoped this would make their alliance even stronger, but trouble was coming. Many Roman senators feared Caesar's growing power. They began to plan against him. In 44 BCE, something terrible happened. Julius Caesar was killed by a group of senators who believed he was becoming too powerful. They stabbed him in the Roman Senate. His death shocked the entire world. Cleopatra was heartbroken. She had lost her strongest ally and the father of her son. Without Caesar, Cleopatra knew she was in danger. Many people in Rome now saw her as a threat, and she had no one to protect her. Quickly, Cleopatra gathered her son, her loyal servants, and her treasures, and fled back to Egypt. Back home, Cleopatra was determined to stay strong. She mourned Caesar's death, but refused to give up. She continued to rule Egypt wisely and bravely. She strengthened her army, improved Egypt's economy, and prepared for any future danger. Cleopatra also made sure to protect Caesarion. She wanted him to grow up to be a strong ruler who could one day unite Egypt and Rome as she dreamed. She taught him about politics, leadership, and responsibility. However, Cleopatra understood that Egypt was still in a risky position. Rome was the most powerful empire in the world, and Egypt needed strong allies. Cleopatra began to think of new ways to keep her throne and protect her country. This chapter in Cleopatra's life was full of love, loss, and survival. She had faced one of the biggest tragedies in her life, but refused to give up. Chapter 4: Cleopatra and Mark Antony. Cleopatra's life changed once again after Julius Caesar's death. This chapter tells how Cleopatra met Mark Antony, one of Rome's strongest leaders, and how their story became one of history's most famous love stories. After Caesar died, Rome was in great trouble. Many powerful men wanted to control the Roman Empire. Among them were Mark Antony, Octavian, who was Caesar's adopted son, and Lepidus. Together, they made the second triumvirate to rule Rome, but they didn't fully trust each other. Mark Antony was a brave soldier and a skilled commander. He was strong, handsome, and very sure of himself. People liked him because he was also charming. Mark Antony had heard stories about Cleopatra, the smart and beautiful Queen of Egypt, but they had never met. At this time, Mark Antony wanted Egypt's help because Egypt was rich and powerful. Cleopatra also wanted to keep Egypt safe from Rome's growing power. She knew that forming a strong friendship with Antony could help her do that. One day, Mark Antony sent Cleopatra a message. He asked her to meet him in Tarsus, a city in what is now Turkey, to talk about joining forces. Cleopatra saw this as her big chance to impress Antony, and she planned something amazing. When Cleopatra arrived in Tarsus, she didn't act like an ordinary queen. She made an entrance no one would forget. Cleopatra sailed to Tarsus on a golden ship with silver oars and purple sails. She dressed as the goddess Aphrodite, the goddess of love and beauty. Her servants also dressed as gods and goddesses. The air was filled with sweet perfume and flowers. When Antony saw Cleopatra, he was amazed. He had never seen anyone like her before. She was confident, smart, and beautiful. Cleopatra talked to Antony with charm and clever words, and he could not stop looking at her. This meeting was the start of their strong and passionate relationship. Cleopatra invited Antony to visit Egypt, and he agreed. In Alexandria, they spent time together enjoying grand banquets, parties, and games. Cleopatra showed Antony the beauty of Egypt and its rich traditions. They laughed, shared stories, and made big plans for the future. Antony fell deeply in love with Cleopatra, and she loved him too. Together, they dreamed of building a huge empire that would rule over both Rome and Egypt. Cleopatra believed that with Antony's support, she could make Egypt more powerful and safe. But their love was not only about romance, it was about politics too. Antony needed Cleopatra's money and resources to fund his military campaigns. Cleopatra needed Antony's power to protect Egypt. They both knew they were stronger together. As their love grew, Cleopatra and Antony had 3 children. They had a son named Alexander Helios, a daughter named Cleopatra Selene, and another son named Ptolemy Philadelphus. Cleopatra was proud of her family and believed her children would rule a great empire one day. However, not everyone was happy about their relationship. In Rome, many people were angry at Antony for being so close to Cleopatra. Octavian, especially, saw Cleopatra as a danger. He said Cleopatra had tricked Antony with her beauty and charms. Antony's connection to Cleopatra also caused problems in his personal life. He was already married to Octavian's sister, Octavia, but chose to stay with Cleopatra instead. This made things worse between Antony and Octavian, and their rivalry grew stronger. The growing tension between Antony and Octavian finally led to war. Octavian declared that Cleopatra and Antony were enemies of Rome and sent his army to fight them. Cleopatra and Antony prepared for the battle, knowing that everything they had built was now at risk. Chapter 5. The Fall of Cleopatra and Mark Antony. Cleopatra and Mark Antony were ready to fight for their love, their dreams, and their kingdoms. They stood side by side as a strong couple, determined to protect everything they had worked for. But their final chapter was filled with betrayal, heartbreak, and bravery, stories that would inspire people for hundreds of years. Octavian, their greatest enemy, was determined to defeat Cleopatra and Antony. He wanted to control Egypt and stop Antony from becoming more powerful. Octavian's army was strong, well-trained, and ready for war. Cleopatra and Antony, however, refused to give up easily. They decided to face Octavian in a huge sea battle. This battle, called the Battle of Actium, happened in 31 BCE near the coast of Greece. Cleopatra brought her fleet of Egyptian ships, and Antony brought his Roman soldiers. Together, they believed they could win. When the day of the battle came, the sea was filled with ships, soldiers, and weapons. Cleopatra and Antony fought bravely, but Octavian's forces were too powerful. During the battle, something surprising happened. Cleopatra's ship suddenly turned and sailed away. Many people believe she left to protect her fleet and herself. But Antony misunderstood her actions. He thought Cleopatra had betrayed him. Feeling broken-hearted and confused, Antony's army began to lose hope. Octavian's army defeated them, and Antony was left in despair. He returned to Egypt, desperate to know the truth. When Cleopatra and Antony met again, she explained her actions. She told him she had not betrayed him, but had tried to save both their lives. Antony believed her, and their love stayed strong. However, they knew Octavian's army was coming closer. They tried to defend Alexandria, but their soldiers were outnumbered. They understood they couldn't win the war, but they stayed together until the very end. Antony fought one last brave battle, but his army was defeated. Believing Cleopatra was dead, Antony fell on his sword. As he lay dying, news came that Cleopatra was still alive. His servants carried him to Cleopatra's hiding place. There, the two lovers shared their final moments together. Antony died in Cleopatra's arms, leaving her to face the future alone. Cleopatra knew Octavian would soon capture her. She refused to be shown as a prisoner in Rome, paraded as a defeated queen. Cleopatra was proud and strong. She chose to take control of her own fate. In her final moments, Cleopatra, dressed in her royal robes and crown, she surrounded herself with treasures and symbols of her rule. According to legend, Cleopatra asked for a poisonous snake called an asp to be brought to her. She let the snake bite her, ending her life by her own choice. When Octavian arrived, he found Cleopatra dead, lying peacefully in her royal chamber. He was shocked, but also impressed by her courage. Cleopatra's death marked the end of Egypt's kingdom. Octavian took control of Egypt, and it became part of the Roman Empire. But Cleopatra's story didn't end there. Her life and love with Antony became legendary. People admired her for her intelligence, bravery, and determination. She was more than just a queen. She was a symbol of strength, resilience, and courage. Cleopatra's story teaches us that even when facing great challenges, we can stay strong and fight for what we believe in. She never gave up on her dreams or her country. She showed the world that women can be powerful leaders, thinkers, and warriors. Her life ended in tragedy, but her legacy lives on. Cleopatra reminds us to never give up, to believe in ourselves, and to take control of our future. She proved that even in the darkest times, we can face difficulties with bravery and pride. So, my friends, let Cleopatra's story inspire you to be strong, to dream big, and to never let fear stop you. Her life was full of struggles, but also full of love, hope, and greatness. Be like Cleopatra, bold, fearless, and unforgettable. What do you think about this incredible journey? Isn't Cleopatra's story one of the most inspiring stories in history? Let her life remind you that no matter how hard life gets, you have the power to rise above it.